Now that outdoor dinners are back, you've probably lived this. The table set in the garden, the perfect evening, and 10 minutes in the whining starts in your ear. The slap, the scratching at your ankle, and one by one everybody ends up retreating indoors to finish dinner. The usual response is to light a citronella candle, spray yourself down, or take swats at the air. And it doesn't work, or it half works, because you're attacking the problem from the wrong end. That's the mistake almost everybody makes, fighting the mosquito that's already biting you, instead of the reason there are mosquitoes at all. In Japan, this is taken seriously enough that the most famous mosquito method in the world was actually invented there, and you'll see it in a moment. But the underlying idea isn't a product. It's a shift in approach. Don't chase mosquitoes, create a zone where they can't be born nearby and can't fly toward you. Turn your table into a place that, for a mosquito, is simply impossible to reach. It all starts with one single idea. The idea that holds up the rest of this video. A mosquito biting you is the end of a chain, not the beginning. For every mosquito you swat, there are dozens being born in some pocket of water you aren't even looking at. And here's the key almost nobody takes into account. The mosquito has two huge weaknesses, and the entire method is built on them. The first is that, to reproduce, it absolutely needs standing water. The female lays her eggs in still water. The larvae grow there, and in about a week or a little more, you've got a new generation flying. No still water, no new mosquitoes. The second weakness is that the mosquito is a terrible flyer. It's light, clumsy, and a simple current of air knocks it off course and keeps it from getting close. The Japanese approach isn't about killing mosquitoes one at a time with a spray can. It's about attacking those two weaknesses, take away the water where they're born, and ring your table with barriers they can't cross. You don't fight them. You shut the door on their way into the world and the door into your dinner. And once you understand that, you stop swatting and you start designing a space. Here's how it's done, step by step. The first method is, by far, the most effective of all, and it costs nothing. Get rid of standing water. It's the mother of the whole problem. A mosquito needs very little water to breed. A saucer under a flower pot is enough, or a forgotten bucket, a wheelbarrow, a garden toy, a pool cover sagging with a puddle on top, a clogged gutter, a bird bath, an old tire, or even a bottle cap full of rainwater. And since the cycle from egg to adult mosquito takes only about a week, the golden rule is to empty and tip over anything that holds water once a week, without fail. Take a walk around the garden with fresh eyes and hunt for every container that traps water. Empty it, flip it over, put it away, or punch a hole in it so it drains. Pay special attention to what you don't see at first glance. Gutters and downspouts clogged with leaves are one of the most common and most ignored mosquito factories on any property. The mistake almost everyone makes is looking only at the big, obvious puddles and overlooking the small, hidden spots, which is exactly where the mosquito prefers to breed, because there are no fish or currents there to eat the larvae. Get rid of the still water and you've cut the problem off at the source, not just trimmed the symptoms. And there's a detail that reinforces why this works so well. The species that bothers people most in yards and gardens, the tiger mosquito, doesn't come flying in from some faraway swamp. It breeds in small containers of water very close to where it bites, often in your own yard or the one right next door. In other words, the mosquito ruining your dinner was probably born a few feet from your table. That's good news, because it means emptying your own containers has a direct, fast effect on the mosquitoes biting you. It isn't some abstract battle against the whole neighborhood. And if you're already finding this useful, hit subscribe, because what's coming next is where the real difference gets made. The second method is for the water you can't get rid of, and here there's a solution few people know about that's an absolute gem: biological larvicide. There are spots with water you don't want to or can't empty: a pond with fish, a bird bath, a decorative fountain, a rain barrel you use for watering. For those cases, there's a natural product called BT, which is a bacterium. Its full name is Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, sold in the form of floating tablets. What it does is specifically kill mosquito larvae when they eat it, and only them and the larvae of a few similar insects. It's harmless to people, pets, fish, birds, bees, and the rest of wildlife, because it targets only the digestive system of those particular larvae. You drop one tablet in the pond or the barrel, and for weeks that water stops producing mosquitoes without harming anything else. It's cheap and it lasts a long time. The usual mistake is the opposite. Pouring bleach or oil into a pond or water feature with life in it to kill the larvae, which poisons the fish, the frogs, and everything else. With BT, you get the targeted solution. It kills the larva and spares the ecosystem. The third method is the one that turns your table into a genuinely protected zone during dinner, and it's surprisingly simple: a fan. Remember the mosquito's second weakness, that it's an awful flyer. Mosquitoes can barely make headway against a breeze of 1 or 2 miles per hour, something you wouldn't even notice. An oscillating fan next to the table does 2 things at once. It creates a current of air the mosquito can't physically cross, and it also scatters the cloud of carbon dioxide, heat, and body odor you give off, which is exactly the trail the mosquito follows to find you. So it doesn't just push it away, it makes you almost invisible to it. This isn't a baseless home trick. The CDC itself, the main public health authority in the United States, acknowledges that a fan reduces mosquitoes' ability to fly and to bite. And a study published in a journal specializing in mosquito control recorded between 35 and 45% fewer bites. For it to work, position it aimed at where you're sitting and not too high, because the mosquito flies low, around ankle and leg height. The mistake is setting out a weak little tabletop fan with no push. You need something that moves real air, ideally oscillating to cover the whole table. It's clean, quiet compared to the nuisance it prevents, uses no chemicals at all, and it cools you off on a hot night on top of it. By the way, all of this is part of one bigger system. If you want the complete Japanese method, with all the secrets for a home, a garden, and a life that are more pleasant, better cared for, and pest-free, the book is linked in the description of this video and on the channel. It's there if you want it. Moving on. The fourth method is the one that gives the video its name, the genuinely Japanese one, and it has a beautiful true story behind it. It's the mosquito coil, that green spiral of incense you light that gives off a thin trail of smoke. In Japanese, it's called Katori Senko, and it isn't a marketing gimmick. It was literally invented in Japan. In 1890, a businessman named Eiichiro Ueyama created the first mosquito repellent in stick form out of pyrethrum, a natural insecticide extracted from chrysanthemum flowers. The problem was that the stick burned up in a few minutes. It was his wife, Yuki, who had the idea of curling the incense into a spiral so it would smolder slowly for hours, and that's how the green coil known all over the world today was born. A single coil burns for around 7 hours. And the important part is that it works for a real reason. As it burns, it releases the chrysanthemum's pyrethrins into the air, which in small doses repel mosquitoes and in larger doses kill them by attacking their nervous system. Placed next to the table, it creates a bubble of treated air around the people eating. It's cheap, it lasts the whole dinner, and it has that touch of tradition that gives the evening some character. In fact, in Japan, it's such a recognizable icon of summer that many homes burn it in a pig-shaped ceramic holder, the Kayari Buta, which has become a decorative object of the season. One honest note: many modern coils no longer use the natural pyrethrum from chrysanthemum but synthetic pyrethroids, which are manufactured versions of the same compound and work in a similar way. If you prefer the natural version, check the label and look for the ones that say pyrethrum or pyrethrin. That said, it has to be used with some sense, and we'll get to that in the safety part, because smoke has its rules. The fifth method is a backup, and it's worth being honest about how far it goes, because there's a lot of hype sold here. This is about repellent plants and garden care. You've surely seen citronella, lavender, basil, catnip, or scented geranium sold as anti-mosquito plants. And here's the truth: a plant sitting there, still in its pot, repels very little. The oils those plants contain do repel, but only when they're extracted or the leaves are crushed and released into the air. The whole plant, just standing there, barely does anything. So having them is fine as a backup and as decoration, but don't count on them as a barrier. What really does help, and it's free, is keeping the garden tidy so the mosquito has nowhere to hide during the day. Mosquitoes spend the hot hours resting in dense, damp, shady vegetation, so keeping the grass cut, the hedges trimmed, and the damp corners cleared takes away those shelters. Fewer hiding spots by day means fewer mosquitoes lying in wait by night. And two more notes that add up without costing anything. For one, if you have a pond, encourage the life that eats mosquitoes, fish, dragonflies, toads, and bats are natural predators of larvae and adults instead of sterilizing it completely. A living pond with movement breeds far fewer mosquitoes than a dead, still puddle. For another, watch your dinner lighting. Bright white lights pull a swarm of insects toward the table, so using warm, dim, or amber-toned lights makes your zone a good deal, less inviting to everything that flies at night. And now, right before the most important method of all, the one that genuinely creates the mosquito-free zone from the title. If you still haven't subscribed, this is the moment, because this last point is the one that ties everything together and changes the dinner completely. This method isn't a new product. It's the strategy that pulls everything above into a single idea. Build a layered, defended zone around the table, instead of relying on one trick alone. Think of it as a castle with several walls. The first wall you've already raised by getting rid of the standing water across the whole garden. That reduces how many mosquitoes there are in total. The second wall is the air, the oscillating fan sweeping the area where you sit, creating a current they can't cross and erasing your scent trail. The third wall is the smoke, the pyrethrum coil placed on the side the breeze is coming from, so the repellent smoke drifts across the table. And there's a fourth wall, also very Japanese, that people forget: the physical barrier. Japan has used the kaya for centuries, a traditional mosquito net, and that same idea applied today is to ring or cover the dining area with mosquito netting, a screened gazebo, or even a canopy, especially if you always eat in the same corner. A net never fails. What can't get in, doesn't get in. To that, you add two moves on yourself, because you're the bait. Mosquitoes home in on carbon dioxide, heat, and odor, and they bite most at dusk and dawn, which are their peak hours, so eating in light, long, loose clothing, and avoiding the busiest hours when you can makes you much less appealing. Stack the walls and the result isn't fewer mosquitoes. It's a zone where they simply don't reach you. One practical detail, so the layers don't work against each other. Put the fan and the coil on the same side, the one the breeze comes from, so the current carries the repellent smoke across the table instead of blowing it the other way. That way the air and the smoke work together in the same direction instead of canceling out. That's the mosquito-free zone, and it isn't magic. It's stacking barriers that reinforce each other. Now for the honest part, because this channel doesn't sell miracles. First, no method leaves an entire garden 100% free of mosquitoes. What you get is to reduce them enormously and create a protected zone around the table, which is exactly what you need to eat in peace, but don't expect to wipe the mosquito off the map. Second, if your neighbor has an abandoned pool, a stagnant pond, or a gutter turned into a larva factory right next door, part of your work gets undone by their neglect because the mosquitoes fly over from there. In that case, your barriers around the table still hold up, but the water battle isn't one you win alone. And third, the most important of all, this is nuisance control for comfort. It is not medical protection. In many areas, mosquitoes transmit diseases, and if you live in one of them, or if someone reacts badly to bites, don't trust your health to a coil and a fan. For real protection against bites, you have to use a proven repellent on the skin, the kind the health authorities recommend, with DEET, picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus, or IR3535. The ambience creates the zone. The repellent protects your skin. They're different things, and you need both. And now for the safety part, because with fire and chemicals, you have to show some respect. Start with the coil and anything that burns. Always use it outdoors and with ventilation, never in a closed room, because the smoke, however natural its origin, is particulate matter you don't want to breathe in an airless space. Put it in its metal stand or in the classic ceramic holder, on a surface that won't burn and away from tablecloths, curtains, awnings, or dry vegetation, because it's a lit ember. Never leave it burning unattended or within reach of children and pets. It's fire. With BT and any other product, always follow the label doses. Use the right product for each type of water and store it away from children and animals. And one last piece of common sense. The best long-term defense isn't fogging the whole garden with chemicals every night. It's taking away their water and building the zone. Less poison, more strategy. Take away their water, defend the table. And it's worth being clear about why the whole philosophy here is to prevent and create a zone rather than fog endlessly. Spraying the entire garden with insecticide kills the mosquito, but it also kills the bees, the butterflies, the dragonflies, which, by the way, eat mosquitoes and everything that pollinates your garden. And on top of that, it forces you to spray poison where your kids and pets eat and play. Taking away the water and raising barriers around the table achieves the same goal, a bite-free dinner, without poisoning your own garden. The peaceful dinner isn't just the goal. It's the sign that you've understood the mosquito better than it understands you. Prevention and a zone, not fogging. So here, specifically, is what to do this weekend, starting with everything that costs nothing. Saturday morning, take a full walk around the garden and empty, flip or drain everything holding still water and clear out the gutters. Turn it into a weekly habit. That's free, and it's what removes the most mosquitoes. Then take the cheap step. Drop a BT tablet in the pond, the fountain, or the barrel you can't empty. Set up a good oscillating fan next to the table, aimed low, and keep a pyrethrum coil handy to light on the windward side when you sit down to eat. Trim the damp vegetation around the area, and if you always eat in the same spot, look into netting or a canopy for that corner, and dress in light colors and long sleeves at dusk. You start with what's free, you move up to what costs a few dollars, and you build your zone in layers. And if you want the rest of the Japanese home and garden methods at this same level of detail, they're all in the book in the description. So, to pull it all together, because the complete system is simple to remember, take away their standing water, because with no still water, no mosquitoes are born. Treat the water you can't empty with BT without harming wildlife. Set up a fan that breaks their flight and erases your trail. Light the Japanese pyrethrum coil to wrap the table in repellent smoke. Add the physical barrier of a net if you can, and don't forget that you're the bait. You attack both of their weaknesses at once, the water and the air, and the table becomes unreachable for them. And with that, you don't just win back one dinner. You win back every summer night in the garden, the long dinners, the friends over, sitting on after dark, with no whining in your ear and no ankles covered in welts. And if you thought the mosquito was a battle, wait until you see what the Japanese method does with the other guest nobody invites to the table in summer, the flies in the kitchen. In the next video, you'll see how to keep them out of the house without a single sticky strip and without a single chemical. See you in the next one.